In this lesson, we will be talking about Inkscape, which is the software that you can see open here in front of us. Inkscape is a great free solution for creating vector drawings. It is a vector-based drawing software that works with SVG files, also known as scalable vector graphics files, that are often used in web development. SVG files describe graphics with a textual markup language that is readable by web browser and very easy to manage and compress without losing quality like you do with standard JPEG or PNG files. We can see the main difference between vector and raster in these examples here. While Raster uses the pixels technology, so a large amount of small little squares, as we can notice here in this example, vectors is calculated with points and lines, so it is always clean even when we zoom in or zoom out. Instead, raster drawings will lose quality when we zoom in on the lines or drawings that we have created. In this video, we will be seeing the main interface of Inkscape. We will be seeing how it is composed by various menus and tools and how to access all of its various instruments. We can start off from the top left corner up here, where we will find all of these drop-down menus. We can start off from the first one, which is the File drop-down menu, where we can see right below we have the New. This has to do with creating a new document. As the little pop-up message says, create new document from the default template. If we were to click on this, a brand new document with a default setting will appear. Going back to our File drop-down menu, we can also select New from Template, so we can create a new project from a template. And right away, you will notice that this window will appear with a lot of different options on page sizes to create a new document. These all have to do with this white page that we can see here. We can choose the size of this page, which will be the document that we will be working on. So whatever drawing, illustration, whatever we want to create, we will create it on this white page. So in this menu, we can scroll down and decide the various options. So for example, A4 leaflet, screen, just blank page, a business card, CD label. We have various options, and we can try, for example, selecting business card. And when we click on it, the information on the measurements will appear here in this window. So the size in this case will be 74 millimeters by 52 millimeters. And since we have the possibility to click on this arrow, it is a new drop-down menu, it will give us other options that will always respect the proportions of a business card, but always the same small size. So we could select 85 millimeters by 55 millimeters, which is standard for Europe, for example. And then by going here on Create from Template, we will be able to create the file like so. So you can see how small this document is, and it is exactly how a business card size would be. Going back to our File drop-down menu, we can continue seeing. We also have the option Open. This means open an existing document. So if you have created a document previously, you can open that. Or if you have anything in your computer that you want to continue working on, this is the option to click on. And we also have Open Recent, and this specifically means if you have any recent files of Inkscape that you have been working on, then you will select this option here. In this case, it says no items found because there aren't any recent documents specifically of Inkscape that I have been working on. You may notice also next to all of these options that we have seen so far, like new from template, and so on, we have these letters here on the right. These are keyboard shortcuts. So we will be seeing these more in detail in the future lessons, but just to know quickly, by selecting these keys on our keyboard, so for example, the Control key and the letter N, we will access the new option. So it will create a new file for us. But we will see these more in detail in the following lessons. Let's continue seeing what's in our drop-down menu under File. We also have Revert, which means to revert to the last saved version of document, and the changes will not be lost. So this is a very useful tool. We have Save Document. So whatever we're working on, we can save it right here. Save as, so we can save the document under a new name. Save a copy, so again, exactly as it says, we can save a copy of the document. Save template, so we can save a copy of a document as a template, so something that then we can use in the future to work on. Import means import a bitmap or SVG image into this document. Import web image, again, exactly what it means. We can import an image directly from the web, so online. Export means that we can export this document or a selection as a PNG image. And then print, exactly as it means, we can connect this to our printer and print the document. Clean up document means to remove unused definitions, such as gradients or clipping paths from the depths of the document. So we will be seeing this more in detail further on. Then we also have document properties, and if we click on this window will open with the document properties. So this is a very useful window to keep in mind. By opening this, we will quickly be able to see the size of our document. So in this case, we had chosen the business card. So it will say exactly 85 by 55, so width and height. It also tells us what orientation it's in. And we have the possibility to change these details while we are in the document properties panel. So for example, we can change the orientation to make it vertical instead of horizontal. We can also change the size, so we can make it larger or smaller right here if we want to. And also by clicking on this little button here, it will keep the proportions the same. So whatever we add or take off of width, for example, it will do the same to the height. It will add the same value or remove the same value. We can also change the scale directly. So we can make it larger again or smaller. If we open View Box, again, we have more details here that we can modify. And then right here under display, we have these other options. We can also change the shade of the border and shadow of our document. Open the wheel just to change the color. So notice how it's changing here, and we can see the shadow change color in our document, like so. Again, we can do this with the background by selecting in this area. So this way we get to choose the color of the background of our page, but let's keep it white for now. And also we can choose the color of the desk background. So here, for example, we can change it and see how now our background has changed completely. But let's bring it back to gray. And again, here we have the possibility to select other options. So the checkboard, for example, so now we have this checkboard texture all over our screen. We can choose to take away the border and shadow around our document, and then have always on top or show shadow. And then moving on, we can see that there are guides. So we can choose the color of the guides. If I were to drag out a guide here, guides are useful for drawing. We use them so that we can follow these lines, for example, if we want to stay in a certain space, like so. So if we wanted to draw inside of the square, guides would be very helpful also because we can see measurements with the guides. And in this case, we can change the color of the guides. So we could make them green, for example, and the highlight color. So when we select the guide, at the moment it shows up as red, and we can change that color as well and make it purple, for example. So when we go and select our guide, now it shows up as purple. But let's bring this back to default. So this was blue and the highlight color was red. Then we can also select grids, and here we can decide what type of grid we want. But again, we might see this better further on. Then we have color options, and we have nothing here at the moment because again, we don't have color profiles in our document. Scripting, metadata, and license. So these are more in-depth details about our document that aren't important right now while we are still learning how to use this program. But let's go back now to our file drop-down menu and continue seeing the different options. Finally, at the end of our file drop-down menu, we have close, so close window, and quit, so quit Inkscape. So we can either close this window that we are working on now, and it will ask us if we want to save the document or not, or we can also quit Inkscape directly, so X out of this software. Continuing with our drop-down menus, we can see the most important tools that we will find inside this drop-down menu up here. So under the edit drop-down menu, we have some of the most common instruments that we will use, like undo, for example. So if we have just done something like draw a line that we don't like, all we need to do is select undo. And also right underneath redo. Again, in this case, since I haven't actually done anything on this document, it won't show up as available. We also have undo history. So our software will have a history that will save all of the actions that we have done. And in this case, we can cancel that history. We have cut. So we can delete something with this cut tool that we have done. Copy and paste are two of the most important actions that we will be using. So copying an object and then pasting that object. We have paste in place, paste style, paste size. There are different options. We can also see duplicate and clone. So this literally means that we can either duplicate something that we have created or clone that. So we could create a clone, create tiled clones, and so on, as you can see here. We also have delete, which is similar to cut, that is up here. Select all, which is very useful, so we can select all of the objects that we have created inside of our document. Deselect right here, so again we can deselect in this case all of the objects that we have selected. If we move on to the view drop down menu, we will see the other main actions that we can find here, like zoom, for example, so we can zoom in, zoom out, or zoom to specific ratios. Orientation, so we can rotate our document or our objects. Then continuing on, we can select to have the guides visible or not. So in this case, I have moved some guides onto our document to make an example earlier, and we can choose to have them invisible. And then we can toggle that on or off whenever we want. We also have the option of full screen, so stretch this document window to full screen. So if we select that, our interface will be the size of our full screen. And again, going back to the view drop-down menu, we can deselect it. Moving on to our layer drop-down menu, here we will find everything that has to do with layers, which are a very important instrument in most graphic design softwares, but we will be seeing this more in detail further on in the next lessons when we'll be talking about layers. So we can move on to our object drop-down menu. And this will have to do with anything that we create on our document. Again, We will be able to see this more in detail when we actually start creating illustrations in our software. The same with our path drop-down menu. This has to do again with paths, so illustrations that we will be creating. So again, we will be seeing this more in detail further on. You can imagine the same will be for text. So this has everything to do with when we create a text or a phrase, any words, any letters, and so on. So these will be useful instruments for when we tackle that. Filters is also very interesting, and we will be seeing these again further on in the next lessons. It has to do with changing the aesthetics of our image that we will be creating. So changing the colors, doing distortions, adding effects and materials, and so on. And then we can see our extensions drop down menu. So this has mainly to do with the actual software. So we can view previous extensions, so repeat the last extension with the same settings, previous extension settings, so we can click that, for example, and we will see the details of our document, so the business card. Moving on, we can see arrange, color, so we can choose the color, document, so the document info, export info, text info, and typography info, and so on. And then we arrive to the last drop down menu, which is help. And this is a very useful menu as we can find the Inkscape manual, for example. So if we select that, a website will appear automatically with a guide to a vector drawing program. So this is in all effects a book about how to use Inkscape with various different sections. So with a quick start, files, how to create and open files, changing the view. So it is in every way a book on how to use Inkscape. Scrolling down, we can see keys and mouse reference. You can ask Inkscape questions. Here under tutorials, you will find also different tutorials. So for example, if we were to select Inkscape Interpolate, this window will appear with a little tutorial again and on how to create these effects. So this is very, very useful as you can open these tutorials while you are working. You can find information on the software, report bugs. You can also donate. As it is a free to use software, you can have the option to donate to it. And then you can see information about the memory and information about Inkscape. So by selecting that, for example, we can see here the main page of Inkscape. You can find information on the authors, on the translators, and also on the license. Now that we have seen mainly what is in all of these drop-down menus, we can see what this toolbar here in the left contains. So scrolling very quickly, we can see the first option is select and transform an object. So it is this arrow that we are using now. Right below, we can find a rectangle and squares creator. So we could create rectangles and squares. And right next to it as well, we have circles, ellipses, and so on. Here we can create stars and polygons. And right next to it, we can create 3D boxes, which is very interesting. And right below, spirals. So this has mainly to do with shapes. Right below that, we can find the draw Bezier curves and straight lines. So it is a tool to create lines and curves. Right next to it, we have freehand lines. And again, right below, draw calligraphic or brush strokes. And next to it again, we can create and edit text objects. So this is the tool that we will be using to create writings. Right below, we can find create and edit gradients. Next to it, we have create and edit meshes, so textures and so on. Below this, we have pick colors from image. So this is also very useful. So if you import an image, you can use this tool to copy the colors that are in that image. Next to this, we have fill bounded areas. So with this tool, we can select a color and fill in shapes with the color that we select. Right below, we have the Tweak Objects by Sculpting or Painting tool. Next to it, we have Spray Copies or Science of Objects. Below, we have Erase Objects or Paths. So we have a eraser. Next to that, we have Create Diagram Connectors. Below, we have Measure Objects. Next to that, we have Zoom in or out. And then right below, we have Create and Edit Document Pages. So this toolbar is very, very useful as it has the main tools that you will be using in this software. Moving to the right of our interface, we have another toolbar here with very different options. In this toolbar, we will find options that we have also in the drop-down menus here at the top. So for example, we will find create a new document, open an existing document, save document, print document, import bitmap, export this document, undo last action, do it again, copy selection, cut selection, and paste objects. All of these tools that I have just mentioned, we can find in the File drop-down menu and also the Edit drop-down menu. So here in the File drop-down menu, we have New, Open, Save, Export, Print. And in the Edit, we have Undo, Redo, Cut, Copy, and Paste. So all of the tools that I mentioned here. Moving on, we also have Zoom to fit selection in window, Zoom to fit drawing, Zoom to fit page, and center page in window. So it will center the document. We also have duplicate selected objects, create a clone, cut the selected clones, group selected objects, ungroup selected objects, edit objects, view and select font. And again, all of these we can find in the drop-down menus up here in the top left corner. They have been put here for easier and quicker access. You will notice also underneath the drop-down menus that we have these options below. So the interesting thing about this software is that these options become available when we select tools in our toolbar here on the left, for example. So if I were to select the create a rectangular square, now these options will change. It gives us the option to change the color and the stroke of the square. And now, for example, if we were to choose the create a spiral tool, these options change again. Right below in our interface, we will see here a long line of colors and palettes. So very easily here, we can choose the main color that we want to use in our illustration or in our drawings just by selecting them. So let's choose our create a rectangles and square tool very quickly just to see as an example. And if we choose this color, it will appear up on the top right corner. So every time we select a color below, it will change here. And if we want to see different colors, all we need to do is select these arrows right here. So if we select this one, now we have various shades of green. Again, let's go down. Shades of blue, shades of pink and purple, and so on. We can move up and down to choose different colors and palettes. And lastly, here in the bottom right corner, we have some other tools. So if we select this arrow here that's going towards the right, we have the option to access preferences, document properties, layers, and objects. And also, if we select this icon here, so this hamburger icon, we will have all information on the palettes. So at the moment, the ones that appear here below are the Inkscape default. But if we were to choose, for example, this one, Royals, then it will change the colors that appear below. So that's it for today. We have seen the main tools and menus that are in our Inkscape interface. Make sure to come back for the next video where we will move on and see more in detail how we will be using the Inkscape software. Thank you for following along. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can leave them in the comment box. And if you want to give our page some support, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you for following along.